Well, hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, host of Helping the Brave, and that's bringing our guest today, Trevor Spiers. How you doing, sir?
I'm terrific, Ed. How are you? Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, what else can I do? I'm in California in the cold and a little congested because we have a wet cold. I don't know where you're out of, but that's where I'm out of, Modesto,
We're,
California.
we're in Virginia Beach. It's actually warm. We had a cold snap for a while, but it's actually been warm. It's a little drizzly out today, but we'll take it. It's winter here. It's always a kind of, you never know when in the winter.
Yeah, we get a fog that usually socks in for a while and we don't get out of it. I mean, luckily today our high right now is 51. So
All right.
toasty outside. I can
That
almost get in
that
my
is
pool.
cold. That is cold.
Actually, I started using wanted to get into cold plunging, and my wife's like, "Why don't you use the pool first to see if you'll even do it?" And I do it, and it's in the 40s, 47. So
Okay.
yeah,
Enjoy.
yeah. Well, actually, if you haven't done it, the endorphins and everything you get after it, it just makes you so happy. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I will give it a shot. I know it's popular, so maybe I will.
Well, I've been looking into it for years and did it last year and now doing it this year, and it makes a big difference. But we'll move
Okay.
on. It's not about me, and it's not about cold plunging. Trevor, you're a veteran. What service did you join, and why?
Um, so I'm a Marine. You know how it is. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Yeah, no former Marines, and not it's funny. I've seen so many people go, he's a former Marine. No, they're always a Marine. I was a corpsman in the Navy, so you guys are my
Okay.
people. Yeah. So
Right on. Loved our docs, man. Always loved the docs, and it's funny because Marines are we consider ourselves tough, the baddest MFers on the planet, but I think any corpsman will say, it's debatable, man.
well, it just depends where you're located at the time and what you're trying to get out of. It's okay.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, I'm a Marine. I was infantry. I'm originally from Connecticut. I'll kind of get to how I joined the Marines. I went to after I graduated college. Once I graduated high school, I went to college on a full drinking scholarship and absolutely did fantastic at that. And so basically, after that, I realized I was wasting my parents' money, and I'm dating myself here. But the first Gulf War broke out, and I was like, all right, well, I'm done. I just don't want to go to school right now. Let me do something different. And I'll tell you kind of I looked around and I was like, well, I like to scrap. I like to get into fights. So the Marines are probably, that's probably the best for me. But then I always tell this story. I had a girlfriend at the time in college, and her brother was a Marine. And I didn't have any exposure to Marines. Both my grandfathers were in the Army. They were both in World War II. One was also in Korea. One of them saw combat in both. My father was in the Navy. So that was the limited exposure that I had to the military, nothing to the Marine Corps. So I knew the dress blues, but I didn't know that much. And so again, me and my girlfriend at the time were walking through the airport. We picked him up, and he was in his dress blues. We were walking through the hallway of the airport, and every girl just almost broke their neck. And I said, "I'm doing that." And so I went to the recruiters the next week, and the rest is history.
Well, yeah. So for me, Air Force was everything in my family. I only knew one Marine, and it just has to do with who you're around in the time, because what a lot of people don't realize is the Army is huge. My son's in the Army; he's an airborne medic, and he's he's in Korea right
Okay.
now. But they're a huge branch. You don't realize how big they are, and and then you have the Air Force, who didn't realize during the whole Vietnam why they had to. More people got drafted in the Air Force because they were filling it up, because they just, in the 50s broke it off from the Army. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of history that a lot of people don't know about. But so where'd you go for boot camp? Was that in California, or were you somewhere else?
No. So I'm from Connecticut originally. So I went to Paris Island, and it's Paris Island is Paris Island. You've heard all the stories, and it sucks when you're there, but the stories you have when you get out are just the greatest stories, and you can compare those stories to everybody's stories. Our yearbook, it's funny, our yearbook, they change the pictures. They have like stock pictures for, I don't know what it is, 8 or 10 years. And it just so happened that the year we were there, or the time that I was there was the exact time that they switched it. So for about 10 years, I was in one of these stock photos of me, looking like my head shaved, just, it was the first day. It was like the initial PFT, and I'm holding some guy's legs for the sit-ups. You can imagine what I looked like, just an absolute mess. It was hilarious that anybody who was in, I was like, turn to this page. That's me. They're like, that doesn't look anything like you, man.
Yeah. Boot camp's a little different for everybody. I'm just saying how you change, you know what I mean, as you come out. So how long were you in? Because you said you joined in Gulf War, so that'd be 1991.
Yeah, so I was in from 91 to 95. I was one of those people who had an absolute great time. I mean, I was infantry. I was built to be an enlisted infantryman. I was just built for it. Physically, psychologically, it just matched. I was stationed in Hawaii, so you can imagine that was a pretty good duty station, or at least I loved it. It was interesting because there were a lot of guys that were from the similar place to me, New England. I always say the Marine Corps is basically 49% of people from a 4-block radius in Boston, 49% are from East LA, and then 2% are the rest of us, but a lot of those guys from New England, they just didn't appreciate it and they didn't like it that much. And you see a lot of people in the military, if they're in too long, sometimes they get sour. I loved it. I was built for it. I had a good time. I made E5 in under 4, which is unusual, especially in infantry. And I did it the right way. I worked hard, and there was never, there's some guys that do it a little bit differently. And I grew up playing lacrosse. I could still play lacrosse. I wanted to go to college. And so I ended up going, when I got out, I went to UMass Amherst for a year. I realized 2 things. One, I'm back in New England. I don't want to be in New England. And the second is I have Division I skills and Division III speed, and I'm never leaving the bench. And I'm too old to just ride the pine at a school in a part of the country I don't want to be at. So I transferred to Virginia Wesleyan University down in Virginia Beach. Played a couple of years of lacrosse there. Did real well. When my eligibility was up, they gave me a diploma, and ended up, I was married at the time, and ended up staying, and we raised a family and started some businesses here. And it was great. But the opportunities that you get, and I'm sure you'll get into this, and what you can put together from the military and your training have just been so invaluable to me, and it's really kind of helped me pave the way to where I am today.
It seems like you're running the podcast, so I'll just go your way. So what are those? It's a conversational podcast. I don't have to come with the ideas. It can come either way.
Okay.
But you're right. So in business, well, I don't think a lot of people understand that about 50% of veterans are business owners. They're 1% of the whole population of business owners, but about 50% of actual veterans are business owners. And it's all from what we learned, attention to detail, the SOPs that we had while we were in, the stuff that we learned that we're like, why are we learning this when we learn it? Helps us so greatly going forward. The whole, if you're on time is 5 minutes early. If you're at the right time, you're late. That whole thing is how we deal with things. But it also is detrimental to us also if we're not careful, because of how direct we are. Doesn't usually work with a lot of people. So that is my issue still to this day. That's why I'm in the mortgage industry, because it's one industry that you have to be very direct in, because there's no question. You need to know exactly where you are at that time.
Yeah, I started out of college. My first job was as a mortgage broker. So yes, you have to be very direct and incredibly direct in that, because people don't understand it. So I know how difficult it is for you. But I guess you're right. It is difficult. You have to be careful how direct you are, because again, that's your training. I have a bit of an advantage here, because being in Virginia Beach, we have some of the largest naval bases on the planet here. So there's a lot of military influence here, and a lot of veterans who we're either around or are in the businesses or have jobs. So you can be a bit more direct, because that's sort of the culture here. But when you're outside that culture, you do have to pare it back a little bit, because it can be off-putting to people. And then sometimes in businesses, it can be refreshing to have somebody who's direct, because when people are indirect in business, it can hurt the business, it can kill deals, or it can make your timeline from getting from point A to the beginning of a project or a business to point B the end or profiting from a project, it can extend that timeline, and nobody likes that.
And again, back to what you said, it's getting the right people around you who want to be, or who want that type of environment is what you need to work. Because I mean, not everybody needs to bend their will to meet everybody else's need, but you can go, okay, what is this? What's going to work for me? What am I looking for? And that's what you can focus on. Because you have two choices. You change to meet these other people, which a lot of them, if you go in a boardroom, nothing gets done. I mean, they sit there many ways, and this is not a knock on politics, but the way the vice president spoke is exactly how they speak in boardrooms. They talk for 10 minutes about nothing, and then you feel like they actually said something.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is, and that happens in business all the time. And another thing is that the military training gives you is dealing with different personalities. So there's a bunch of things, and that's probably why you've seen so many, or there are so many military veteran business owners, because of all those things. Because, like you said, you have to decipher what are they saying in the boardroom. Okay, it's mostly BS, but let me take the couple of tidbits that are actually things that have been said, and that happens in the military all the time.
Right. All right. So how long? So you went in college. What was your first business? So you said you started businesses. So
sure. So
are you a serial entrepreneur, serial failure? Please don't take that wrong, because they're all learning phases. But what was your first business?
Yes and yes. It's so funny. I've had to accept the moniker of serial entrepreneur. I don't know why I had such an issue with it. I felt like there was so many people throwing it around, and they had businesses that weren't good businesses. What I considered a good business. But I have accepted it. My fiance Jess is she's such a great lady. And she's the one who finally said, no, you're a serial entrepreneur. I was like, all right, if you think it's cool, then I guess I can live with it. So my first business, I got a job as a mortgage broker, and kind of learned the real estate business a little bit. Then I got into flipping homes and did that for a while. Then happened to get into some historical restorations on homes and their historic tax credits. So you can kind of profit from the house and profit from the historic tax credits. And that was real successful. So it was doing that. And then in 0809, when the market crashed, I was one of the ones who got their butt handed to them, literally down to pennies. And it was, talk about failure, because there's nothing when you see in business. I always saw the light at the end of the tunnel. It was the first time in my life I didn't see a business light at the end of the tunnel. And I was applying for regular jobs, didn't know what was going to happen. Got a couple of deals, down to pennies, and got a couple of deals that were successful. Was able to build myself back up. Got into some larger developments. When I say larger, like 4 or 8 unit new construction homes, and built that into a 40 unit development. And then I've built them, 100 unit developments with a lot of commercial. The one that I was told you about earlier that's getting voted on tonight is a 154 unit development. Have some other large ones, but it's offered me. So I've gone to those, and those are each one kind of businesses. Do some private money lending. But what it's led me to, and what we're here for tonight, is being able to have the capital and a great partner in my buddy Chris Klein to start Oola Cocktails. And it's kind of was sort of a fun passion project that's turned into a really great business. And it's really taken off. So, again, it's just business after business. Whenever we sell that one or move on from that one, I'll figure out something else, because it's fun. It's a mission. Like, here's your mission, complete the mission.
Well, you did say you practiced it in college at first. So,
well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said you did say in the beginning that was why you went to college the first time. You went to college to the drinking school, right?
Yeah. Yes. People ask me, well, why did you get into the what drew you to the cocktail business? So, like, I'm a mass consumer. That's what drew me to it.
No, it's whatever you need to promote that on or whatever, let me know, because you guys did send me a 4-pack of it, and we appreciate it. So
yeah, and here's the Oola Cocktails, and we're available in Virginia, throughout the state.
You have 8 varieties. I only know about the Island Girl, Spicy Margarita, Big O, and then the other one.
No, it's 2 of each. So it's an 8
Okay,
pack, but it's
gotcha.
2 of each. And of course, we're the kickback cocktail. And
You
you're
know
right.
what it
We have,
reminded me of? You know what it
what's that?
reminded me of? You ever been to Spain?
I have not.
Okay. When they so I really like geez, now I'm gonna forget it because I'm getting so damn old. The wine cocktail thing that they do, the sangria.
Sangria.
So here we do it differently. In Spain, they add a little Sprite to it or whatever bubbly it is. And that's what it reminded me of when I first drank it the first time.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but you will find that we are lightly carbonated. It's not a
No,
heavy
I'm not.
carbonate.
It just reminded me of it. I didn't say it was exact. So they do a splash of it also
Okay.
kind of, it was just a different take of sangria that I've ever heard of was over there because we did the Community Santiago twice. And then that was what we got for sangria. Here in the States, it's done totally different. It's so much sugar and so much other stuff. It's just cognac and everything else.
Well, that's what we do in the U.S., right? We load everything up with sugar.
That's right. So, all right. So I want to talk about, was there anything else you want to talk about here? Because I want to go back to your real estate deals that you're working on. The one that you were talking about, the big unit, is that build to rent or build to sell?
So the 100-unit development that I just finished up, that was to sell. Those are townhomes to sell, and we had a 12,000 square foot commercial piece. The one that I'm talking about this evening is for rent. 154 new construction new construction apartments. All the amenities, beautiful area. So hopefully it happens.
Well, I mean, we need building of homes. People don't realize this is so. If I put on my other hat, the mortgage real estate guy that's been talking on everything documentaries and have a book out, is the fact that we are so short on homes. It is ridiculous. It's going to take us 20 plus years to get out of the shortage that we have. And
Mhm.
people think we don't. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't want it in my backyard, the NIMBYs, especially around in California. It's like, you're idiots. We need no one's going to be able to afford a home if we keep going the way we're going.
Yeah, the it is interesting, and you look at the nationwide shortage of affordable housing, and the apartment building I'm talking about that's being voted on tonight is affordable housing. It's not Section 8, or even though it's funded by, or the cap stack is partly funded by low income tax credits. Everyone thinks, oh, it's Section 8, and it's all these the people who can't afford to do anything are going to be. It's not that. It's affordable housing. There's a whole complicated. It's not very complicated, but there's a mathematical formula as far as AMI, the adjusted income of everybody and who fits there. And you look at what the people who are going to live there and what they make, and then you take that salary and you apply it to what jobs are out there. And it's your police, your fire, your teachers, your people who work for the city, your paralegals, you're around here, your military. Those are the people that live there. They're the ones making that, between $35,000 and $60,000 a year. And they need places to live. And like you said, there's a shortage there, and certainly in the for sale market, there's a shortage for people who make that, with the rates being as high as they are and construction costs. But yeah, once you get to the apartment building, there's a nationwide shortage. So
Well, multifamily, single family, it's short everywhere.
yeah.
The problem is builders aren't building in the single family because they need the home builder index to be over 50 and closer to 60 in order for them to really say, okay, let's keep moving forward on building. They're just building enough to keep their people, because it's so hard to replace construction workers because they'll leave and go somewhere else and you never get them back.
Yeah, and look, it's expensive to build houses too. I mean, if you take on bank debt, even though it's interest only on projects when you're building this to sell, it's still expensive. I mean, it's 2-3 times as much as it was 4 years ago. And then the costs with inflation, whether it's materials, which have come down a little bit, but labor is still high. So all those costs get passed on. I think everybody understands that, right? All those costs get passed on. So I mean, my fiance Jess and I are putting a second story on a house we just built that we're going to move into, and what I'm putting into this house, I used to be able to build 3 houses for, and it's just it's amazing, and they have nice finishes, but it's not like I'm building some Taj Mahal. it's just the expenses, the costs are really just up there. And until that changes, it's going to be difficult for there to be a big explosion in the building world.
And it's what people don't understand, this inflation, the numbers aren't going down. They're just not going to go up as much. And people think that, numbers are going to come back. No, the increase that we've had, we're not going to see a decrease. There might see a little decrease in lumber prices and a bunch of stuff, but not back to where we saw in 2019 prior to the pandemic. And that's what people understand, because we were going to build our forever home on our 32 acres. And by the time after the pandemic hit and the construction loan was stopped, and right afterwards, it was 40% increase. That on a $700,000-800,000 house is a lot of money. And people go, why are you crying about it? It's like, no, it's the cost was just too much to where I don't want to spend that amount of money to build a house. I'm okay with the house that we have right now. And, we'll put that money in other work for us other ways. We'll split the property. We'll do building or do
and
something.
The only other way to
go ahead.
And the only other way to combat that is to have low rates, and the rates have gone up. And there's so many my father's an economist, so a lot of the stuff he says goes over my head, but there's so many factors that go into rates and where they are. And everybody thought, the Fed just dropped rates, and everything I do is based off of the 10-year yield, the 10-year bond. And, they cut rates, and you're like, okay, and it's great, it's going to go down. And nope. I mean, it shot back up almost to, I think the highest it got was close to 5, right? But it got down to about 3.6%, and it started to go up a little bit. Then they cut rates, and then jumped up to 4.5, and now it's settled right now about 4.2, and it should hopefully get back down to that 3.5 or 3.75. But until it gets there, it's going to be difficult for builders to really get out there and get after it.
Yeah, but even the 3.65 that was in September, those rates. The problem is this is not supposed to be a show on mortgages, but one of the biggest problem we have is we have 150 basis points built into the cost, because when they have to buy, so when I do a loan for 500,000 and I sell it to the secondary market, they're paying 505,000 for it, right? And they're like, okay, I got to hold this thing for so many months, and I think I'm going to have it for at least 4 years for interest on it and make my payment. So the problem right now is we're not going to see that. We're probably most of these people are going to be refinanced in 1 year or 2 years. So the people buying them are like, I need a premium up front, or I'm not buying these. And if they don't buy them, nothing gets sold. Nothing gets it just stops the market. And that's what people don't understand. So there's a premium still built into there, about 150 basis points, that we should be much lower than where we are. And and that has to go away. And that's not going to go away until rates settle down and get lower, and then it will go away and rates will go much lower. But we're not going to see the 2%. We're not going to see the 1%. We're not going to see what we did during the pandemic. In order for that to happen, we all have to think we're going to die again, and then it might happen. That was a huge shutdown of the whole country, the biggest recession we've ever had, and that's why the rates were there.
Yeah, well, I agree with everything you said.
You understood that?
I did understand it. You stayed on the surface. You stayed on the surface, and that's, like I said, anything my dad tells me goes up here. But when you stay on the surface like that, I can't understand it.
Yeah, so I do a morning show Monday through Friday with a co-host, because we're on radio. My radio show is called Real Estate Jerky. We give you something to chew on. Been doing it since 2018, and so we do a morning show 5 days a week on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. And one of the ladies the other day that I met last Friday at a thing, she's like, you say these numbers, you're so smart, it's all over the place. And so I'm like, okay, so people aren't understanding. So I took those numbers, and now what I do is I throw them in Chat GPT and ask it to put it at an 8th grade level. And that's not to hit anybody or go, it just makes it easier to understand. If I can explain it to 8th grade, I can explain it to anybody. So
yes.
And that's how I do I've been doing it this week, and it's been much better. So, we all have to learn at one point that we need to dumb it down for people. That's why there was those books, Everything for Dummies.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
So that's that project, and build more of them. And that's called workforce housing is what you're doing, which is
there's any number of buzzwords that control the
that's
for sale
basically
project.
what we hear for means the people that do everything for us, that needs a place to live. Problem in our area, they're building affordable housing in Sacramento, this huge 8-story building. The units are $600,000, and that's not affordable housing.
No, again, it goes to rates. 4 years ago, $600,000 was affordable. Now it's not.
Well,
That
anything's pretty much affordable at 2.75. The
that's right.
problem is we're not going to see the lowest we're probably going to see is in the fours. If they want the rates to really drop, we ended up the day 6 basis points today, finally the other way, for the mortgage-backed securities. Just came across the screen. But if we really want these things to go down, what we need to do is make it tax deductible for the average person to buy these like the other countries do. And then that way we would invest in them and it's tax deductible. We don't have to pay taxes on what we make off of it. More and more people would buy them and it would make our government not have to buy all these bonds.
Yeah. Well, as long as the U.S. economy is the yeah, I'll tie a bow on this. As long as the U.S. economy is the economy for the world and everything is, we're sort of the baseline, then there's a whole bunch of different things that they can do if they want to do. Whether they're helpful or healthy for the country is another conversation. But I mean, you go back to when 08, 09, and then it kind of went on until about 3-4 years, or what, 2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, 3 years ago. QE, quantitative easing. They didn't have a history on it, didn't know if it would work. They can kind of say whether you agree or not. I'm not saying that they're right, but they can go in their toolbox and say it worked because we're still the world's foremost economy.
Well, it's just because everybody's at a war right now.
Whatever the reason, yes.
Everybody's fighting each other, so of course we are. But the problem is you're going to send another $1 billion over there. It's like, do we really need to keep doing that? And I'm not going to get political, but I'm just saying there's a lot of us think the same way, and it's like, okay, enough is enough. We need to that war was stopped 3 years ago, and then was told to rip it up and keep going, and that's a sad thing. Yeah. All right, what's next? So Trevor, so you got that going on, you got the cocktails going on. What's next for Trevor? I mean, is the goal is to build that and sell it, build it and keep it? What's the goal?
So that's a great question. The ultimate goal is to build and sell. But it's important that we build the right way, not only from a business standpoint, but if you look at Oola Cocktails, you go to our website, if you go to our Instagram page, we call ourselves the Kickback Cocktail. And we have a podcast, Oola Kickback Conversations, with me and Chris. And, there's a lot of brands out there in the RTD business. And just real quick as an aside, let me tell you.
Trevor, what's RTD before any acronyms? Any acronyms, explain them, please.
Okay. So RTD is ready to drink and then cocktail. So there's a difference, between this, which, everybody, there we go. There's the Island Girl right there.
He's got his Island Girl can up.
That's right. This is our top seller, the Island Girl. So people, ready to drink cocktails have real spirits in them. So like ours has, like Island Girl has rum. The Big O has vodka. That's our Orange Crush. Prickly Pear Margarita and Spicy Margarita each have tequila in them. And there's a difference between those and, like a Truly or a White Claw, which are seltzers, the hard seltzers. Those are really malt liquor. So ultimately, they're beer. You can sell those in any grocery store in any state. But what you can't do is you can't sell the RTDs, the ready-to-drink cocktails, in every state in the grocery stores. And that's where you make your money. There's only a certain amount of states. So I go back to my point earlier, growing it correctly. We have to go, right now we're in Florida and we're in Virginia. So we kind of see ourselves converging in contiguous states. Everybody thinks when you have a company like this, well, we've got to get in every state. And no, that's not what you want to do. You want to concentrate on states and own states. So again, it's the same thing. And this goes to, my Marine Corps background and military background is, what's the mission? The mission can't, we're going to spray, rounds all over the place. No, you have to spray, you have to put your rounds in a strategic position. Your mission is to go to a strategic, strategic place, whatever your mission is, that's what you do. Now you might go off a little bit, but ultimately you have to complete the mission. So it's the same with us. We have the kickback lifestyle. We have that's our brand. That's what we're pushing. And we're going to use that we think our marketing and our branding is fantastic. Taste is subjective. I think they taste incredible, but it's certainly that subjective. We've gotten great feedback. So we want to be very strategic, very disciplined in our business model to go into these states, to own these states, to get good distribution, great points of distribution, really push the kickback lifestyle. And from there, hopefully build up enough states, whatever it is, 5, 6, 8, 10 states. And at that point, you should have enough volume that the suitors will come to you.
Now, so are the states that have, so California, you can get this in the grocery stores, right?
You know what? We're not on the West Coast yet. I think that California just changed the rules.
Because we have the 1800 that you can get there that's ready to drink through, which is a margarita mix. Costco has their own at Costco, which is not a grocery store, but I'm just saying you can get it here, but there's other states you can't. And one of the reasons I bring this up is when I was in college, I was a Mountain Dew dude. I mean, I got pretty big too, because I was in the military. I'd go to school at night, stay up till 1 o'clock, get up by 4, ride my bike into work because I did triathlons and I did other stuff. And so, I mean, that was just what I did. I drank that. Well, they had a hard Mountain Dew, which has alcohol in it, and it wasn't available on the West Coast. It was available in Reno, in Las Vegas and Nevada, but not here. So I think, like you said, you have to do it strategically to get into certain places and distributions the right way. So, and that was just
exactly. You're trying to sell a lot of it, right? I mean, you're trying to sell a lot of it. If you're in the spirits business, if you're selling rum, vodka, whiskey, whatever it is, the profit margin on that is much, much higher than it is the RTD world. But you don't sell as much. You buy a 4-pack or an 8-pack of one of our 8-packs, right? You buy one of our 8-packs and it's going to last you a weekend. Maybe it might last you, if you go to the beach or on the boat or something like that, it's going to last you a day. Whereas you buy a bottle of rum, it's going to last you a month, might last you a couple of months. So the profit margin on those is higher. So they can go in the liquor stores, the ABC stores, and they don't have to sell as many, but we have to sell a bunch.
Gotcha. When we get done here, I have an idea for you. It has nothing to do with this. It's another idea that I came up with for something like this. But I don't know how to get into it, so I don't want to waste my time. Trevor, I appreciate you being on today and telling your story. And if people want to reach out, talk to you, be on your podcast, certain things, how do people find you?
So the easiest way to find us, you can go to our website, which is fine, but we really want people to go to our Instagram site, which is sort of that's the metric for everything right now on social media, right? It's Instagram, which is Oola, OOLAH Cocktails, at Oola Cocktails. Go there. I think there's a link to our podcast there. There's a link to our podcast on our website. We're also on Spotify and Apple.
Okay. And I will have all that information in the show notes. So if you get it over to me, I'll put it in the show notes when this gets dropped in about 3 weeks. So that will be all there for people to find and be able to go right there. Any special thing for listeners of Helping the Brave?
You know what? You probably have a lot of veterans out there, and it's important. I say this, whether it's good things in your life or bad things in your life, what I've always done, especially if traumatic things have happened, is to fall back on your training. Is always fall back on your training, because there's something you will have learned in your military service that, when something goes wrong, or goes right and you want to get to the next point, you can say to yourself, well, how do I do this? How do I make it through this? Or how do I get to this next point? It's all in the training that we learned. You have to fall back in your training. Remember that, and trust that there's nothing you're going to do or go through that you're not prepared to go through because of your training. I love working, whenever we're in business with veterans, because there's a different language. And it's amazing. We're a veteran-owned business. We advertise ourselves as such. And because I'm in a veteran area, I didn't realize how important it is and how much people appreciate and value what we've done for our country. And, none of us want to say, oh, we're heroes, we're this, that, and you don't have to do that. But you did make a huge sacrifice, and people want to repay you for it. So don't slam the door on that. Really use it to help yourself.
I totally agree. Most of us don't think we're heroes, but we're brave, because brave people run towards danger. Not that we don't think what we did as heroes. We think we're brave. That's why I was surprised I could get the name Helping the Brave, out there, because I thought for sure somebody would have had it. Trevor, thank you so much for being on the show today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it.